Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast, episode 20. I'm John. I'm joined by my co host, Mark, who is probably thinking about the ACT right now. He thought I'd be taking the ACT, but, the Lions now officially have 6 wins, so I'm in the clear, and they need to win one more game for, Mark to kind of revisit his high school days, see if he can beat his score. So, Mark, how are you feeling? We've seen the TikToks. I get it. You've had a change of heart, but that doesn't make up for the 10 weeks that you've been talking shit about the Lions at this point. So what do you have to say for yourself to start this episode off?
Does this shirt tell you maybe how I'm feeling? That's how I feel. I feel like Weenie Hut Juniors, dude. I don't feel very good about it. Learned a few things. One, that I was totally wrong, and I'm gonna have to eat shit for it for a long time here moving forward, especially if these Lions keep ratting off wins. And the worst case scenario would be if they do win another game and then don't make the playoffs. Because listen, I'll gladly take the ACT to watch the Lions play in the playoffs because I think that they actually could do something special this season somehow. But the worst case scenario would be they win one more game and don't get in. And oh my god, that would just suck.
And just have a 7-win season.
But let's just everyone saw the TikTok. If you haven't, go look at it and you see what I think about the Lions. But we'll get into that. Let's get into our other stuff first. There's plenty of Lions talk.
We'll get into there's so much Lions to talk about.
So much.
I'm excited. All right. So first things first, let me get screen share in here. So I just want to talk about this because this has kind of been a recurring topic, is like a what if college football playoffs if it was a 12-team bracket. And I just want to kind of show everybody what that would look like, because I look at this, and with the exception of Tulane, maybe, I legitimately think all of these teams are playoff teams, right? And would potentially win their respective matchup. So, Mark, what are your thoughts? I'm really pumped about the fact that this is going to be a reality in a couple years. And, it's just going to heighten the level of competition. It's going to make more games matter throughout the season. So that kind of hypes me up.
Yeah. Well, first thing, I'm going to read out the bracket seeding too for people who aren't watching this and can't see it. But they got the top 4 are, the conference winners, right? So automatic bid, which is how they're going to do it in a couple of years. And I think that's awesome. If you win your conference, you get an automatic bye into the next round. So they got Georgia's the top, Michigan is the second, Clemson's the third for winning the ACC, and Utah's the fourth for winning the Pac-12. And then you go up to the top side here. You got Kansas State as the 9 seed playing Tennessee as the 8 seed. The winner of that would play Georgia probably. Then at the bottom, you have 5 TCU, 12 Tulane. They would play Utah. On the top right, they have USC and Alabama as the 10 and the 7. I think Alabama probably takes care of business and plays Michigan in the second round. And then you have Ohio State and Penn State, a Big Ten battle to play. And the winner of that, 6 versus 11, would play Clemson. And then from there, you can kind of pick and choose who you think is going to win and stuff. But I think that it's not a guarantee that those teams that had buys are going to win in those second rounds. I mean, especially you look at Alabama playing Michigan in the Rose Bowl in the second round. Like, that is not an easy matchup for Michigan, right? I think most people would actually pick Alabama to win that. And then you have Ohio State playing Clemson. I think the same case, right? Like, I think Ohio State probably would be favored as a 6 seed against the 3 seed Clemson. And TCU would probably be favored against Utah. So it's just crazy how this would have looked and how this would have, been. And I mean, who knows? Tennessee, Hendon Hooker stays healthy. They play Georgia again. I mean, they play Georgia pretty close in Georgia, in Athens. So
what's that like at neutral territory?
Like
everybody's healthy. Yeah.
It's so totally very cool to look at. If you haven't looked at it, this is definitely something really cool that we'll put out there too on our social medias and stuff, so people can kind of dissect it and see who they think would win and stuff. But definitely interesting, man. And I wish that this were the case this year. You have to wait a couple more seasons for it, but definitely pretty cool to think about. And especially this year with who ended up winning the conferences, like, not many people thought Clemson and Utah would end up having a bye, into the next round, but they would have earned it in the, the way that it's going to be set up in a couple of years.
Yeah. And I think it's only fair to award that to conference champions rather than arbitrary rankings, right? Like, it makes it very clean. And then all the arbitrary stuff can happen with all the people that have to fight and play in, but the bye week should go to those conference winners.
And it gives it, that's how you add the the 12-team playoff without diminishing the value of every game throughout the season, right? Because
Exactly.
it's a huge advantage, right? If you win throughout the season and you go and you compete in your conference, like that's a big deal if you win your conference, right? Like think about if Purdue was able to beat Michigan. They would
Right.
be a top 4 team in the playoff and have a
Well,
bye,
and
you
that's
know?
what I was gonna say too, is that honestly, I feel like conference championship games, and now they mattered, I'd say, a little bit more maybe than usual this year, but like for Big Ten, even like the past few years, it's been Ohio State versus whoever's on the other side, and Ohio State would just tee off on them every single year. Like that was, and
Yeah.
now you saw Michigan has done that the past 2 years. So it actually adds a lot more weight to that conference championship game where most of the time I feel like it's like, oh, sweet. Like, let's go watch Michigan blow out Purdue for absolutely no reason this week. It doesn't
I mean,
decide anything.
it just increases the importance of winning that game and getting a bye in a 12-team playoff is such a big advantage. And I
Totally.
like it's going to make those conference title games even more important, even bigger, higher stakes. Like everything that about this playoff is set up perfectly. And in a couple of years is all we have to wait, and we're going to have it. And
Definitely.
so it's just a kind of a dream to look at this and see how awesome that would have been to watch. But couple more years and we'll have it.
Couple more years. I'm very excited for it. And then the next thing you wanted to talk about was this Caleb Williams like little
Yeah.
interview here.
So there's good and bad with Caleb Williams. I'll let John play this in a second, but he obviously won the Heisman. I think he was the deserving candidate. I think Max Duggan was the only other guy that you could even argue deserved to have a chance this year. And we talked a little bit about Blake Corum being snubbed. Also, Bijan Robinson from Texas won the Doak Walker Award, but he had better stats than Corum even did, and wasn't even a finalist. And you just look at it, and the Heisman Trophy. There's a lot of questions about it. We talked about it in last week's episode, but I wanted to show this video of Caleb Williams because I think that he's trying to be a lot of different things, and I think he just has to find his true identity. And this is him. And if you press play, you can see he's comparing himself to Mahomes.
Just had Tom House, legendary QB guru, on his podcast, and he said that he thinks you're the second coming of Patrick Mahomes. When you hear that, just how do you process a statement like that?
It's pretty cool. I'd say just because everybody watches Patrick and sees all the cool things he can do, and I always said, even in high school, that I don't think there's anything. Obviously, it's special, but I don't think there's anything that I can't do that he's doing out there. So, um, you know, I think it's really cool, like I said, and I had comparisons of a bunch of other people. So to have Patrick is pretty cool.
So I don't know. I saw that. People have different takes on that. I saw that as, pretty bold to say that you can do anything that the top quarterback in the NFL today can do. We're talking about a Super Bowl champion, a guy who's, in the MVP conversation every season, who's won, he's only lost one game in the months of December, November in the last like 3 seasons. Like, and you're going to just, you're a college player who lost 3 games. You lost 2 games to Utah in your conference, couldn't even win your conference. And you are going to say that you can do anything, Patrick. It's pretty bold. I understand the dude's a freak. He just won the Heisman. He's exciting to watch. I love watching him play. I kind of hope he's a Detroit Lion eventually.
I do
John
too.
agrees.
I legitimately think he's a better quarterback prospect than CJ and Bryce. So
yeah.
now what I have to say, Mark, is while I agree with you, like I watched that video and I don't think it's coming from a place of ego. And I also don't think that he's saying like he can do all that stuff right now. I think he's saying that like he can rise to that occasion as an NFL player and actually eventually be that good. And yes, that's it's probably exaggerating, but I also know in the NFL, like that's just kind of how guys talk about themselves, right? Like there's a confidence, there's a moxie to everything. So yes, I agree with you. A little bit of a cocky statement. Definitely a bold thing to say, but you're a Heisman winner and you're definitely going to be a very high draft pick for quarterback next year. And who knows, right? Like once you get to that level, you're playing behind an NFL offensive line. You got NFL receivers. If you're doing your job, maybe you can get to that level. And that's kind of how I interpreted that comment.
I think a couple things too, and you have some points there. I think mixed with the other stuff that he's done, he definitely invites people to hate him or love him. He's painting his fingernails, every single week, and especially in the Pac-12 championship, he had the F Utah on his 4 nails on each hand, and then you didn't win. And then, like it's not a good look. And then also, I think he hinted he's like, even since high school, he's thought he could do everything Mahomes can do. I think, I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe he's projecting of what he can do. I think he's talking about like right now. I think he thinks he can do anything Mahomes can do,
and that's obviously wrong, right?
That's wrong. And obviously, like yeah, he won the Heisman, but he also was far from perfect this year, and has a lot of work to do before they're not even in the playoff this year. So
right. And he's what, a sophomore?
Yeah, he's a second year guy in college, and he just fouled Lincoln Riley. He was with him the first year, backed up Spencer Rattler, eventually took his job, and then followed Lincoln Riley to USC. And Lincoln Riley, if we want to just give him a shout out, like the guy struggles to win big games, but the dude, if you're a quarterback, like there's no one else you want to play for, because that's his third Heisman that he's had in like, I think it's 8 years.
That's actually crazy.
It's really crazy. I mean, the Heisman Trophy is a hard trophy to win. I don't care who's your coach or who the quarterback is. Like Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and then Caleb Williams, and like it's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah, no, that's no joke. Absolutely. So yeah, and like I said, I'm really pulling for him to maybe be a Lion. I think if quarterbacks are only weak spot, I don't think we should draft a quarterback this
no,
draft.
I agree.
I think it should be all defense and a running back personally. But that's just me. Anyways, with that, we'll kind of segue into recapping our NFL games. Now, first things first, which I'm kind of excited about this one. Wait, hold on. I'm going to switch my screen sharing up. Okay, cool. Just making sure, Mark, that you're not getting audio feedback. Right, this Rams-Raiders game. I mean, this was a must-win game for the Raiders. They needed to win it, and they had it in their grasp the entire time. And then Baker Mayfield, on 48 hours of being a Rams quarterback, is able to put together a game-winning drive from their own 2-yard line. I'm pretty sure
it was 98-yard drive,
something like that. I mean, what an ending! The Rams are playing for literally nothing but pride at this point. So to see that from Baker's crazy. And then the Raiders, who again must win game if they want to keep their playoff dreams alive, and it slips through their fingers. I thought that Carr was playing horribly the second half, just making a lot of really poor decisions. It was crazy. It was the best Thursday night football game I think I've seen so far this season.
Well,
so,
as bad as the Raiders were, I think I don't think people realize, and that Ryan Fitzpatrick and the guys talking on the Amazon Prime broadcast kept giving Baker credit, right? And it's like, dude, people don't understand how hard it is to join a different team in less than 48 hours. I mean, he didn't even get more than one practice in. He was still learning the plays as the game went on. Like they would show him, he's on the sideline, like studying plays. Like he doesn't even know the plays, let alone timing, let alone cadence and motion.
And to just connect with receivers that you have no time passing
receivers that he's never thrown to.
That Van Jefferson catch. Oh my God!
Oh my God!
How do you do that with a quarterback you don't have any chemistry with? It was
no
crazy.
Chemistry with, no timing, no practice. I mean, the guy literally had been there for less than 48 hours. It's just an unbelievable story. And right when you think that Baker Mayfield is dead, and honestly, this makes me so happy because I thought that the Browns did wrong by Baker. I understand that he's been horrible the last few seasons, but you got to remember this guy was drafted number 1 overall in Cleveland to a team that, I mean, they hadn't even sniffed the playoffs in, we're talking, 30, 40 years. Yes. Took them to a playoff win in less than 3 seasons. This is unbelievable.
Look, I mean, he was bad last year because his shoulder was just absolutely destroyed, his throwing shoulder. So,
and he played through it.
And that franchise decided, thanks for doing that for us and trying to get some wins. We're going to thank you by getting you out of the building and signing a turd. And then, yes, it didn't work out with the Panthers. Obviously, things were not right there. But I do think Baker is a guy that kind of needs a coach like McVay, right? Like just somebody who has just a very clear system, a very clear method, just needs guys to plug into that system and do their job, right? I think that's why McVay wanted Stafford so bad, because Stafford's just a do your job kind of guy, right? So
until he doesn't, until he starts to sling sidearm bullshit passes and throw picks.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah, you might be done hating the Lions, but you're still a Stafford.
Not ever done hating Stafford.
Yeah, all right, that's fine. His neck is broken. I hope you feel good about yourself.
I don't feel bad.
All right. Reeling you in a little bit so that I can complete my thought. I think that Baker could be a very good fit to sit behind Stafford potentially next year. And I think Stafford's thinking about retirement pretty seriously right now. So either way, I think it's a great situation for Baker, and hopefully he continues to see success there with the Rams if he chooses to stay with them this offseason.
Yeah, that was, I mean, and also worth noting how similar this game was to Tom Brady and the Saints, which happened, the exact same score, almost the exact same way. And not to remind you of that, but you brought up Stafford, I'll bring up the Saints losing, and we both hate both those things. So sorry, but had
to. Going to Jets Bills. I mean, look, I get this. People are saying this is a close game. I mean, it's a close game in the sense that it was a divisional game, and this Jets team is a lot better, and they can compete against anybody. But the Bills had the lead the entire freaking game. Like, yes, it was not high scoring. The Bills definitely, their offense was, humbled a little bit by the Jets. But at the end of the day, the Bills were in control this entire game. And Josh Allen, I think, looks to be back to his prior elbow injury form, at least from this game. He seemed like he was all healthy and good to go. And also, I don't know how Mike White is alive right now, is my other follow-up. I mean, that dude literally was split in half in that
several times.
Oh my God.
Listen, you have to give credit to the Jets. This defense is legitimate. I mean, they're holding the best offenses to not a lot of points, and that's why they're hanging in these games. White is hanging in there, fighting for his life, right? Taking all kinds of hits, like you said.
Huge shout out to him. I mean, seriously, for the fact that he had to get cleared to come back in twice, and he did. That's awesome.
You can see why his team bought in behind him. You can see why Conklin is wearing a T-shirt of him. In warmups, it's like he's fighting because he cares and he wants to win, and the guys around him rally to that. And which makes the Jets a dangerous team, no matter who's playing them. But yeah, the Bills get it done, and they're just, again, a good sign to see a team like that find ways to win, no matter who they're playing. You can never discredit any opponent in the NFL because anyone can win on any given Sunday. And the Bills found a way to win it. Didn't look pretty. Offense struggled pretty much the entire first half. But I'll say one thing. It never, ever gets old watching Dawson Knox, Josh Allen, these guys do these hurdle flips, get hit in the air, helicopter, like, it's crazy. It scares you every time, but it's also like such a rush of like, dude, that was so awesome. Like,
well, and it's kind of weird because like they're the one team where every single player on that offense is doing crazy shit like that. And I honestly, like, my heart doesn't drop in the sense that I think they're going to get hurt for whatever reason. Like, when they do it, I'm like, oh, like, you're invincible. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'm trying to like debate whether Josh Allen is like made of steel or like rubber.
Like, it's kind of like when you hit a combo in like a fighting game or something, and like that turns you invincible for like 2 seconds. Like, I feel like hurtling over players, like that's what happens. Just like, yeah,
just like, you're just like helpless. Yeah, everything's out of your hands, and it's just like, but he always finds a way to land and bounce up, and just like, it's so fun to watch, dude. That's part of why I have a man crush on Josh Allen.
Yeah, we
like
know
that kind of.
We know about your Stafford hate. We know about your Josh Allen man crush for sure. And yeah, it was a great game. Now finally, also speaking of just like generational quarterback talents, Joe Burrow finally got his win over the Browns. I'm sure he's feeling pretty good about that. For whatever reason, that's the team he's failed to beat. Since coming to the NFL, beat KC 3 times, but for whatever reason couldn't beat the Browns. So he definitely showed up and made a fool of them. Watson just stinks. Look, I know there's going to be some rust with him, and I know he's going to be an easy target to hate on probably for the next couple of years here, honestly. But just watching Burrow take it to the Browns and Watson struggle definitely was fun. So that's all I got to say about that one.
Yeah, not a lot to say. I mean, the Bengals did what I expected him to do, even though he hadn't beat them. Deshaun Watson, rusty. I mean, we knew that was going to be the case. I don't see it getting much better over the course of the rest of this year. But like you said last week, they're just kind of, I think, trying to ease him into the offense, get him comfortable, get him back in the groove of playing football at a high level again, which I think he actually will be able to do. Deshaun Watson is unbelievably talented. There's no doubt about it. You just, again, you take anybody out of the game that long and bring them back in and say, hey, go, be great. Not going to happen. There's no one that can do it. So good job for Joe Burrow. The Bengals, again, rallying off these wins. It's all too familiar. And the AFC should put notice. Cincinnati is coming again,
Absolutely. Also, really quick, if you're paying attention to the chart, Mark and I picked pretty much identically all the way into the last 3 games here. I went 9-4 this week. Mark went 8-5. So just something to keep in mind since we usually start off by recapping that. Just another dub in my category for.
John's had the best. John has bested me. But listen, so far in this young early podcast, right? We're 20 episodes in, and only how many episodes during the actual season, right? Some of them were before the season started. John has bested me in many, many takes, many picks, and we'll get into that in a couple of games. I'm sure I'm going to hear it for about, I don't know, 25-minute rant.
we're 2 games away from that. Yes.
Yeah. But
all right, Cowboys, Texans. Look, this game was close, and everybody's like, "Oh, are the Cowboys?" And it hurts for me to defend the Cowboys, right? Because I don't like them. I hate on them all the time. But these games happen, right? Like, this is the NFL. These are absolute freaks of nature playing this game. And yes, that means a 1-11 team can keep it close with a team like the Cowboys. It doesn't mean that they stink. It doesn't mean that they're frauds. I still think they play some of the best defense in the league up there with the 49ers and some of those other guys. It's just this game got away from them, but Dak needed to go down and score, and that's exactly what he did, and they won. So,
this would have been so awesome for the Texans to win.
It was. I was pulling for him. Don't get me wrong. I thought it would have been sick, but
yeah, this sucks. It's a bad loss for Houston. It sucks. They can't seem to figure it out, right? I mean, they like we said, and this is what Troy said when he came on, a few weeks prior, right? In one of our episodes, Troy Harrison, their fullback, came on and said they fight, right? They're a young team. They fight. They're in almost every game they've been in, and they've competed with the very best teams in the league. But man, it just sucks when you keep ending up on the short side of things, and especially to Dallas. That would have been so awesome to see them win. A little in-state rivalry going on. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It would have been cool to see. And at the same time, though, I don't think I think the Texans are headed in a much better direction than they were 2 years ago, genuinely. And, it's like, I'm not going to just go and compare it to the rebuild that I think like the Jets and the Lions have been able to kind of pull off here, but they're about to draft probably their franchise quarterback, and, they're probably going to add some good depth in, and they're not headed to a bad place. I mean, first things first, the run game's headed in a good direction. You lean into that, you establish that, it opens up a lot of options for you on offense. So yeah, not all hope is lost for next year, but, a rebuild takes time. All right. Probably the highlight of the episode. So look, and I'll say this because I posted it in the TikTok, right? Anybody that's watched this podcast week over week has known that despite the Lions' record, I have maintained, man, their run game looks seriously good. Their offensive coordinator is absolutely crushing it. Yes, their defense stinks. Yes, their coaches are Dan Campbell's making bad decisions, but I see potential. I see improvement. I think they're getting better. And for whatever reason, after, and Dan Campbell said it after that Patriots game, I think we hit rock bottom here, right? And ever since then, they have looked like an entirely different team. And watching this game, man, the fake punt, just such a ballsy move.
Such a stupid move, I'll say that.
No,
stupid.
It was not stupid.
It was
dumb.
It
turned into a touchdown, Mark. It
worked for them, but if it didn't work, they lose that game. And they had the lead and all the momentum in the world. It was a very stupid decision.
Disagree. Absolutely disagree.
We would have won that game even if we don't go for the fake punt. I'll say that.
Okay.
We were handling that game. There was no need to pull out the bullshit desperation in that moment.
I'll let you have that opinion, and I'll let you have additional opinions. But Mr. ACT, I think you need to pipe down for a second, right? But focus on studying a little bit more, and just think about also that goal line stop and that fumble recovery on Dalvin Cook when the Vikings were going in, absolutely massive. Offense looked fantastic. The play calling, right, to throw to Penny to win the game.
It's one of the best play calls I've seen in a long time.
And I think that might be my favorite Lions play of all time too. Like
that was
I was going
such a
nuts.
smart play, dude. John, and it's a copycat. And let me just, before you continue your rant, because I know you have more, let me give some credit on that play call. And honestly, obviously, the play calling all game was really good. The last few games have been, I mean, Ben Johnson is going to be a head coach probably before we know it. And it sucks because we're going to lose him. I think we should hire him and fire Campbell still and hire him as that coach. But Ben
I think we
Johnson
should just pay him as much as Campbell and hope he sticks around.
He's this play call. I mean, it's a copycat league, right? So, and when I post, we'll post a TikTok clip of this, and I'll kind of dissect it more. But a lot of teams have used their tackles in the backfield on short yardage situation. The 49ers, you saw do it against Green Bay in the playoff game last year, and they put Debo and gave him the ball and just fouled their offensive tackle. It is an awesome idea that Shanahan kind of started doing, and we've seen a lot of teams do. For Ben Johnson to take that idea and say, listen, I know teams know what they think is going to happen when we put Penei Sewell at fullback and motion him, that he's going to just wham motion and kick out somebody or lead block. No one's thinking they're going to throw him the ball because no one's done it. No one has done that, right? That's what I'm talking about, John, when a play call looks exactly the way you think a play is going to be run on 4th and short or 3rd and short. And then all of a sudden it's not the play you thought it was going to be and prepped for all week. And as defensive players, they never prepped for that. They never saw that. That was never run at them in practice all week. They never game planned for that. And for Ben Johnson to pull it out, the timing of when he called that, to save that in your back pocket all game long and use it in that moment and execute it. Wow, dude. Like, that is one of the best play calls I've seen all year. Any team. And that clinched the game, and that was totally awesome.
It was super great. And the other thing I want to say too is just the way this defense is coming into their own. I mean, so many rookies on that field between Hutch, Kirby Joseph, Rodriguez, Houston. You have all of this young talent that, like, no shit, the defense was horrible. If those are the guys that you're relying on for your first 6 weeks, it's their first time, getting reps in the NFL. It's an entirely different level. But now that, they kind of have their feet beneath them, and then you get Okudah and Jacobs healthy, which is what we really need is, we lack depth at corner. So we lose either one of those starters, and it is a very different game as far as game planning for the other team's receiving core. And we've seen that in other situations. So the fact that the defense then is able to kind of piece things together a little bit more, playing really aggressive football. I mean, their run defense looks great. Their pass defense looks decent. I mean, they still let Jefferson have a 200-yard game.
Issues with the pass defense is still some questions, but
it's improved. And I think you have some good players there when they're healthy. So you just need to add depth at that position, I think, primarily. But overall, I mean, this just feels like, and I know it's like the term everybody's using and coined by, Evan Foxy with the Pat McAfee show, but this is the brand new Lions right now. And they look like a totally different team, even from when they started the season. And, Mark can kind of talk about how he flipped the script a little bit, but like, this team makes the playoffs. I don't think there's a whole lot of teams in the NFC that like they can't beat. I mean, I think they legitimately could beat any other team in the NFC.
There's no teams that, listen, John, are you thirsty by chance? Because I got this going.
Oh, the little Kool-Aid?
Kool-Aid Jammer Blue. And the reason I'm going to drink this is because I'm pretty thirsty, and I don't know. It seems that
you need some Lions Kool-Aid.
Some Lions Kool-Aid sounds really good about right now. Listen, I'm willingly drinking this, right? All year long, it was kind of forced. And I was like, yeah, drink the Kool-Aid, drink the Kool-Aid. I didn't want to drink the Kool-Aid because I didn't believe it. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid right now, man. And listen, it tastes pretty damn good. And it kind of tastes like playoffs, man. It tastes like playoffs. And I think that they could make a run if they're able to kind of find a way in. And we'll take a look at some, situations of what needs to happen. And, what if this happens in a little bit when we go into our next week previews. But damn, it feels pretty good to be wrong. It feels pretty good to be wrong right now.
And, I think I almost was like begging for mercy at one point earlier in the season where I was like, because you were just digging into them so bad week after week. Horrible. And I was looking for positives. And I was like, Mark, like if this team actually starts winning against good opponents, are you going to admit that you're wrong and give them proper credit? And to your credit, you said, yes, I will give credit where credit's due. And now here we are. The Lions are 6-7, and you are drinking blue Kool-Aid, and probably eating your shoe a little bit too. So there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to give them their credit. I still don't think Campbell is the right head coach, and I'm not gonna switch on that ever. He puts them. The reason they're not a guaranteed playoff team and not like an 11 or 12 win team is because of him solely. And I'm not going to change my opinion on that. And he almost cost him in that Minnesota. I'm not kidding. That fake punt was really, really ballsy. And listen, a lot of people give credit for being ballsy, but there's ballsy and then there's just downright stupid. That was a really stupid NFL play call. Like that's like something that most high school coaches wouldn't even do. And if that didn't work out in their favor, we would be talking about this Lions team completely differently. So that was really
I don't
dumb.
disagree with you, but I also think 60-yard gain turns into
it was
a
cool and
touchdown,
all, John, but the risk was not worth what we got. Yes, we ended up scoring, but listen, we were scoring at will on them anyway. We didn't need to do that. We had the lead. We were dominating Minnesota the whole game. Honestly, they didn't have an answer for us defensively. We were throwing it. We were running it. We did anything we wanted. We were going to beat that team on that day, no matter what. That fake punt helped, yes. Didn't need to do it. And if we didn't get the first down, it would have been really bad because that is a momentum shifting play that you just didn't need to do. So I'll die on that hill. Listen, that's the truth, but I'll give them their credit, right? Besides that opinion, that's my only negative opinion I still hold on the Lions. Everything else I've been pretty much absolutely wrong about. And they're proving a lot of people wrong, not just me. And I will give John credit. He's stayed there. He's believed it no matter how ugly it looked this year. If you want to pull up that TikTok, John, that hasn't aged so well, and
I'll
let you have your
for sure.
This was a few weeks back. Things were much different.
I got to stop sharing and do the audio stuff. And again, this is so that Mark's ears don't get blasted with his own voice.
Even though I deserve it. He's gonna look good. I can send it in the mail to you.
Sure.
Wear it. I'm gonna hire someone to follow you and just film the whole thing. Just take the ACT and just not take the ACT. Just have a hidden camera on his hat or something, or have like a goggles like iCarly, like Freddie Benson used to do. Yeah, that's what I need to happen. So just start to think about that mentally.
Yeah, a lot of confidence there, Mark. Definitely, a lot of confidence.
That didn't go. That hasn't aged very well.
No,
that
it definitely did not age very well.
That's the beauty of the internet, and when you post your opinions on the internet and then you're wrong, it's
there's receipts, right?
Listen, and I'll tell you this: I've been getting so much shit, John, in the comments because I posted I've completely flip flopped. I'm a total flip flopper. I've completely changed. I mean, I'm literally drinking Lions Kool-Aid right now. Like. This is the same guy. I mean, I wanted everybody fired. It was just a whole.
Yeah, we could pull up the Fire Everyone TikTok too, and that one did not age very well either. So.
No, none of them have. Hey, but listen, I believe in them. I'm going to support them. I'm going to, I think, 2 of these last 4 games. You're going to get live reports from me at these games. I will be in Lambeau for the final one. I really, really hope that's a win to get in game because that would be awesome. They have to do a few things to make sure that is a win to get in game. But I'm telling you, these Detroit Lions, if they find a way in, and it's not crazy, I think right now they're sitting at a 20% chance. And we'll look at the playoff calculator here in a minute after we finish recapping. But I'm telling you, if this team gets in, they're a threat. I would put them right now as the 3rd best team in the NFC, and that's being conservative. I think that they would probably beat Dallas and Philly if they played them again right now. And I genuinely mean that. And I'm not just saying that. I genuinely mean that. If they play like they have played the last 3 games, including the Bills game, they don't turn the ball over. They play like they have on offense. And if they play just a little bit better in the defensive secondary, they can beat Philly and Dallas and Minnesota again, which we already saw. And the NFC is kind of a lightweight, dude. It's a lightweight division right now. There's not a team that stands in their way that they cannot compete with. And we could be talking about a Detroit Lions Super Bowl this year, not next year, not the year after, this year.
First things first, we got to make the playoffs, but I agree with you. I think if we make the playoffs, it's anybody's game. And I think the Lions have everything they need to win games in the playoffs. So like we beat that drum, we've drinking our Kool-Aid. We'll move on to this Philly Giants game, which look, if you're a Lions fan, you want the Giants to be losing, you want the Seahawks to be losing, you want the Commanders to be losing. So Philly beating the Giants here is really big. They blew them out. And again, like I said this earlier in the season, I didn't think the Giants were, really their record. And I started to back off that opinion a little bit after they, kept on winning. But now that we're getting late into the season, they are getting exposed on a lot of fronts.
Yeah.
And
you and I said the same thing about the Giants, right? We were like, how are they winning games? It doesn't make sense. We don't believe in Daniel Jones. It doesn't really seem to add up why they're winning these games. And we gave their coach some credit, and he deserves some, right? They were rattling off wins, but yeah, this is the real Giants. I see them probably struggling to win these last few games and be a playoff team, to be honest with you. I just don't think that they're as complete as we first thought they were. And you know, you can give the Eagles a lot of credit. I still will stand on the thing of this opinion I have with the Eagles. They have looked really, really good, right? But there's some holes in that offense, and I'm telling you, if they get in a situation where someone's able to consistently stop their running game and force Jalen Hurts to throw in obvious throwing situations, like I'm talking 3rd and longs consistently, they're going to struggle because Jalen Hurts is having success because they're running the ball so well. He's able to run the ball. Miles Sanders is able to run the ball, and then they're doing RPOs off of it, which safeties have to get involved in the run stop, which is why these throws. I mean, some of these throws, dude, are wide open. I mean, anyone can make them, right? And
right.
I'm not.
And I mean, and that's the benefit of AJ Brown, though, too,
right?
Is the fact that he's just this towering athletic freak, and when he is open and you throw it in his general direction, you can usually make the play, right?
And Devontae Smith the same, right? So you have 2 receivers that are home run threats that can take any catch, whether it's a deep ball, short ball, and score. And then you mix that with the ability to consistently control the line of scrimmage and run the ball and play good defense. Jalen Hurts is in a dream situation for a quarterback. I'm not trying to discredit him. He's going to be the MVP. He deserves it. He's had a really good season. But when he plays a team that is able to kind of limit their run game, I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. And I think the Eagles are really beatable. I do. I think the Eagles are really beatable in the NFC.
I think their next matchup with Dallas is really going to say a lot, right? Because that's the type of pass rush that you need in order to, I think, kind of cripple their offense in the way that you're describing. And now that, Dallas is going to get a second shot at playing them, we'll kind of see how that goes. But it's pretty interesting. I don't disagree with you. That definitely seems to be a potential weakness. But, man, they're still winning games. They're still taking care of business. So you got to give credit where credit's due for sure. Ravens Steelers, this was an interesting game, and we both thought the Steelers were going to be able to win this one just because their defense was playing a little bit better and Lamar is out. And then, sure enough, they lose another quarterback, but they're still able to win the game. So, pretty interesting result there. How are we feeling about Tomlin, right? This is the first time he's ever had a losing season, or probably, he's one loss away from having a losing season. Pretty interesting. I mean, and it's crazy how quickly a fan base will turn on you, right? Because there are people calling for Tomlin to get fired. And that's just crazy to me when you bring 20 years of consistent 500 or above records to your organization. And the 1 year that you fail to do that, people are calling for your job. It's the NFL. It's kind of what you come to expect, but it still is crazy.
It's the most unforgiving sport for a lot of reasons, especially if you're a coach at a high level. There is no patience. There is no understanding, right? I don't think Tomlin should be fired. A lot of people do. It's weird, but you kind of look back, right? Things start to make sense sometimes as you wait longer and longer, John. You had the funny take of last week talking about Tomlin answering that fan and saying, I'm trying to do my effing job. Maybe that stemmed from the frustration that he feels like he's about to get fired potentially. And he's got this bottled up, hey, I'm trying to do my job here.
There's a lot of pressure.
He feels threatened, right? You don't necessarily see coaches, that are winning games talk like that, I don't know. I feel like the Steelers are obviously in a kind of a rebuild year, losing Big Ben, who was their guy for many, many years. And this is a bad loss, no doubt about it. I mean, you lost to a 3rd string quarterback. The Ravens are not nearly as good as we, thought they were in the beginning of the season. They don't have Lamar, obviously. And, I'll give the Ravens credit. Their defense has come a long way, and that's what's winning them games. But this is a bad Steelers loss. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Tomlin get fired, unfortunately. I don't think he should be, but that's the league we're in, man. That's the world it is.
Totally. Yeah, and I don't think he will be. I think the Steelers organization will have the patience to at least kind of see through what I'd consider like a couple extra steps in a rebuild, because they have had a lot of turnover. But yeah, they got to figure something out. And I think they need to get more aggressive, right? Because even though they have been winning, those last few Big Ben years were pretty rough, and they're, either barely making the playoffs or whatever. So there's a lot of weaknesses. They're not in a position where their Super Bowl window's open, in my opinion, or anything of the sort, especially with how loaded the AFC is. So they either got to, start making moves like the Eagles did, where they got really aggressive and went and got their guys and things like that, because this complacency, right, that doesn't last in the NFL. People are going to start calling for change pretty quick. Then we have the Jaguars blowing out the Titans, which, Vrabel usually wins these kind of games, especially at home. So it's crazy to see the Jaguars take care of business in the fashion that they did. I mean, this Titans team cannot do anything if Derrick Henry's neutralized. And he had 2 yards total offense in the second half, and the Titans couldn't get anything going. And I just think, like, you honestly have to give a shout out to Trevor Lawrence and the way that he's kind of played this season. I know that the Jaguars aren't like some crazy threat, but they aren't a bad team and they play pretty good football. And I think this game is a result of them just not being a bad team and playing good football, and they don't have the talent to beat any team, but the Titans are no joke. They're number 1 seed in the AFC last year. So, a good win for the Jags. They probably got to be feeling pretty good about it. I consider this Trevor Lawrence's rookie season because, Urban Meyer was probably the worst NFL coach maybe of all time.
Urban Meyer was busy hanging out with like 14-year-old girls at the bar wearing, Ohio State gear as he was coaching the Jags. So I don't think he was giving Trevor Lawrence much.
That's what I'm trying to
help.
say. So
Yeah,
I think I'll consider this Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. And if that's how you look at it, I think that he's having a damn good one. So that's kind of how I see it personally.
It helps that he has a super quarterback friendly coach in Peterson. That guy has been great for quarterbacks everywhere he's been. He's a Super Bowl champion coach. So, I think that this is a team to keep an eye out for in the next few years. And Trevor Lawrence is a guy that we could be talking about for a long time as one of those guys. I mean, he's always been talked about as Trevor Lawrence is going to be the next, Peyton Manning. It was a lot of the comparisons coming out of Clemson for a lot of his career there, and even coming out of high school, right? He was highly touted. He was a letdown last year. There's some reasons probably why that is, like you said, but yeah, this is awesome for them. And I think this gives, the Lions even some more value, right? Like they just handled the Jags the week prior really, really well, right? And you can see what the Jags are capable of, and then you see what the Lions did to them. It kind of just adds more and more value to why I think the Lions are legit. But the Jaguars are also legit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing, what another couple of years under Peterson does for them. Absolutely. Moving on to KC Broncos, we got to give a shout out to Broncos and Russ. 3 touchdowns, right? It's big. We're gonna take a look at the bathroom meter real quick, right? Look at that. That's a skyrocket right there. I mean,
unfortunately, will he even play though next week, right? So he hasn't made it there yet. Similar to me not having to take the ACT yet. It's not there yet, but it looks like he's going to get there. I knew one of these games would happen eventually. Maybe it just took him getting hit in the head
against KC out of all teams. Like that's pretty awesome to see. I know that KC's defense is not as good as their offense, but they still are a damn good team. So see that kind of offensive production is definitely legit. We hate on Russ a lot here. I think there's a lot of reasons to hate on Russ here, but got to give credit where it's due. Good job, Russ, for putting it together for this game. And I apologize that you're injured and got rocked the way that you did. I mean, that was brutal, man. You see that welt on his head that formed. Oh, yeah, it was bad.
The welt was, and that's pretty rare. You see from a concussion standpoint, having a welt like that, especially when you're wearing a helmet. You see that in like UFC and boxing all the time. But the fact that he had that through a helmet is pretty crazy. But I'll say this too. You have to give him credit, right? Like, and Jerry Jeudy coming up big. You have to give him credit. He has not given up all year long, right? He's taken a lot of heat. I know Denver stinks. I know that there's going to be all kinds of issues in the offseason with maybe even firing their coach. Is Russell Wilson the answer? But the guy has consistently come every single game ready to go. He's trying his best. He's on a new team. It's not working out, but he hasn't turned on his teammates. He hasn't turned on his coach. And you got to give some respect to that. I know we hate on Russell Wilson a lot, but it's not an easy situation that he's in.
No, and honestly, he, yes, he's a cornball, but at least he's not an asshole, right? And he's his teammates are kind of being, shitty to him because of how he's performing, and he is not letting that turn into a negative situation. So also a new segment. It's called John Forgot the Ticker. Let's go. That was a whole 45 minutes earlier than last episode. So improvement.
We'll have an entire bet every episode of how many minutes go by before he remembers to put on the ticker. By the way, he didn't remember to put the ticker. I sent him a text
Mark
just now.
Yeah.
During the thing, I was looking down. The only reason I thought of it was because on that chart, the toilet chart, that guy had his socials on the bottom, and I looked at ours. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, this is a really great concept that I have, and it's really great for when we take clips of the show and post them, people can just see our socials and go and follow them right away. So yeah, me remembering to do that, very helpful. So I will try to be better in the future. It's my bad. Interesting game here with the Panthers and the Seahawks. I'm also just now noticing that I put our faces on the wrong side of the graphic. We both thought the Seahawks would win this.
God damn it, John.
Yeah, this has not been a good 2 minutes for me so far.
Hey, can we just cut this 2 minutes out, redo, rewind, little, go back? But no,
we could, but yeah, I think I deserve the embarrassment. Exactly.
Hey, I've taken enough shit this episode. You gotta take some of yours, okay?
Yes.
And here's what I'll say. Right, this was big for the Lions. This win for the Panthers.
Seahawks losing is huge for the Lions.
Yep. The Panthers, dude, I'm telling you, they have won a few games this year where it's like doesn't make any sense at all, right? I think this defense is better than people think, and they have some pieces on that team. If they get the right situation at quarterback and they kind of build a few pieces around him, this team isn't terrible. And I think people have to realize that. I know Carolina on paper, you're like, dude, who do they even have, right? Sam Darnold started at quarterback for them. Yeah, but they just beat a team that's fighting for a playoff chance that is,
has something to play for, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, their offense they put up 30 points, to credit to them, but throughout the season, their offense has not been great. And I think their defense is underrated. Their defensive line last season was getting a lot of props, and the coaching on that defensive line was getting a lot of props just for the way that they actually shift players, the way that they angle them makes it very difficult to control as an offensive line. So yeah, they have pieces there. I don't think they need like a full-blown rebuild with whoever this new coaching administration is. I think they do need to find a quarterback really badly, and they need to give that quarterback a little better protection, and they're going to be a competitive team for sure. Teams that were not competitive were the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the San Francisco 49ers. I don't think I've seen Tom Brady lose this bad in my life, maybe. Like, the 49ers were just completely crushing Tampa this entire game, which, look, I'm not a Brady hater by any means. I mean, how could you be? But like, I am just tired of watching him play and beat teams for 20 years, and that's just kind of the expectation. So seeing the, Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy put up 35 points, against the GOAT, pretty impressive.
Yeah. We talked about the 49ers defense potentially being the top defense in the league last week, right? We're like, hey, can you think of any teams that have a better defense? We struggled to do that. They came out and the Bucs don't have a high-powered offense by any means, but to hold Tom Brady, the GOAT, to 7 points is pretty impressive. And I'll say this, the Brock Purdy, talk about being ready for when your name gets called, man. Like, Mr. Irrelevant draft pick, had to fight to even play at Iowa State. He's third string, right? They had their franchise guy is drafted, have him ahead of him to Trey Lance. You have Jimmy G ahead of him, who's one of winning or a quarterback that's won more games than most guys in the league. Quarterback ahead of him, and to see both those guys go down, he gets his chance to come in, and he's 2-0. It seems like his team believes in him. You saw Nick Bosa talking about, hey, like, this guy's legitimate. We have our guy at quarterback. Like, we'll be okay. You could tell McCaffrey believes in him. You can tell that Shanahan believes in him. And
man, some of those throws he was making, I know, it's a quarterback-friendly offense. Absolutely, Shanahan makes it very easy for his quarterbacks to do their job. But like, I mean, the dude had an arm on a lot of those throws.
Dude,
like, it was impressive.
It's like, just when you think the 49ers are going to slip and fall, right? That's not right. I mean, they 2-0 with Brock Purdy, and they're right there, going to be a playoff threat in the NFC. One of those other teams we're talking about. I think that them and the Lions, I would say, have a legitimate chance of beating Philly and beating Dallas and coming out of the NFC. I would say that those two teams, I would like to, if I had to pick two teams to come out of the NFC, I would, if Lions get in, obviously, I would pick the Lions in San Francisco to come out of it. I think that they're more complete when they're playing at their best ball. I think they're more complete. I just, from what I've seen, the eyeball test, right? Obviously the records aren't as good, but
yeah, but records aren't everything, right? And we've seen that. Some of these teams that had 7 wins midpoint through the season still have 7 wins now that we're going to the end of the season. So obviously records matter. You can't say that they don't, but some of these teams that have a lot, right? The Ravens are a 9-win team. The Ravens against the 49ers, I would take the 49ers all day, not even thinking about it, right? They have the same records. So Dolphins Chargers, this was probably like one of the like crazier games that I've watched, just because like finally, and this was not the team I was expecting to really do it. Finally, the Dolphins offense was completely neutralized. I mean, Tua was making throws that looked like his rookie year. And look, I'm a fan of Tua, and I think he's in a really good situation, obviously, but I also think he's a good quarterback that got way too much hate these first 2 years. But they really couldn't get anything done against this team, and the Chargers looked solid. They have both of their receivers back. Their offense is humming. Herbert's obviously a guy, so it was good to see the Chargers play as well as they did, and probably another humbling experience for the Dolphins, who also just lost to the 49ers in their previous game. So,
yeah, Justin Herbert, you have to give him credit. He looked really, really good. I mean, he was really impressive. Probably, arguably his best game of his career so far. And they were just clicking, man. Keenan Allen finally coming alive, doing what we expect him to do. Mike Williams making some great plays. That throw where Justin Herbert rolled right, stopped, threw back over to the left side to Mike Williams. I mean, there's like 3 guys in the world that can do that. You know what I mean? It's Josh Allen,
Yeah.
Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes. So it's pretty incredible that he does it. And he does it all the time, dude. Justin Herbert is really, really slept on, I think, in my opinion. And
I
he
agree.
just hasn't been as successful in terms of wins as those guys, but he is very, very talented. And he has the pieces around him to start to win games. And I think the Chargers are an AFC threat if they're able to get in the playoffs. That's why I keep, rooting for them to win.
I completely agree. I'm always pulling for them, and they're always that team that just falls a little bit short every single season.
I do have some money on them as well, which is part of the reason I want them to win. But I think that they're a team that if they get back to healthy on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you get Bosa back, you get Derwin James back. He didn't play in the game. Like, they're a very good football team. They were able to neutralize the Dolphins, like you said, with backups at several positions on the defensive side of the ball. So, the Chargers played a really good game. This was a must win for them. And, they look really good, man. And they have looked good at times. They've competed with Kansas City. I mean, they are a legitimate threat in the AFC if they find a way in. It's just it's a tough, they're playing in a tough conference. And what are you going to do? It's a tough division, and you got to win games, man. They're going to have to win some here in these last 4 to get in. But
if I remember correctly, besides their divisional games, their schedule isn't super crazy for the rest of the season. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. And then finally, Patriots Cardinals. Man, look, Kyler, love him or hate him, he's obviously a critical part of this offense. And it made me, we make fun of him about the Call of Duty and stuff like that, but like, it really broke my heart to watch, him have not only a season-ending injury, but at this point in the season, no guarantee that he's going to be back even week 1 of next year. He's still probably going to be nursing that injury, unfortunately. It's a huge, huge, huge blow for the Cardinals. I'm curious if this hurts or helps Kingsbury's chances of returning next year, honestly, because then you start giving him the benefit of the doubt. Oh, you're missing your starting quarterback. I'm not sure. But yeah, Patriots took care of business. Mac Jones seemed visibly frustrated with Patricia that entire game, which us Lions fans know that feeling all too well. So we empathize with you, Mac. But yeah, good Monday Night Football game. It was a lot of fun. Some crazy turnover stuff happened. It was cool to watch. So That's
It's
all I
like
got on that
every Patriots game, you see them make defensive and special teams plays that separate them, right? And it just seems like that's how they win these games. And obviously, the stubbornness of not having a real offensive coordinator is hurting them. But and if they did have a real offensive coordinator, I mean, they would probably be a threat to win this division. I mean, they'd be competing right there with Buffalo and Miami and the Jets. And they're already competing, and they don't have a real offensive coordinator. So to see them do this basically just by playing really good defense and having being out coached a lot of the time, which you're going to do with Belichick as your head coach, it's pretty cool to see. I'll say, yeah, it sucks for the Cardinals. It sucks for Kyler Murray. No matter who it is, you don't want to see the non-contact. When you're going to make a cut, injury is just the worst. It doesn't matter who you're watching. It sucks. It's absolutely tough to come back from that. The mental uphill battle is just as hard as the physical uphill battle he's going to have. He's a mobile quarterback that wants to run. Who knows how it's going to alter his ability to do that moving forward. It's a big part of why he's paid the way he is and why he's had any success.
And that is a part of his game. He is not a pocket passer. He will not be the same quarterback if he tries to settle into a role like that. It just doesn't work. He needs to stay mobile. So it's really tough. Also interesting, grass field, which most people
there's been a lot of hate. There's been a lot of hate on the turf fields and blaming ACLs. Listen, it can happen I think it happens at a higher rate on turf, but it can happen. And really, if you go back and you watch film of all of these non-contact injuries, look at Jameson Williams in the playoffs last year for Alabama. He had the ACL injury. You look at NBA players or college basketball players, and they have ACL injuries. It's always the same thing. If you pause it right on their cut, it's the angle that their leg's at that they're trying to cut off of. It looks the same. Like if you just cropped the image to just the leg injury, it looks the exact same every single time. Yep. That's more of what it is than I think whether you're playing on a basketball gym, turf, or grass. I think it can happen at any time to anybody, and that's just part of the risk that when you play sports. Like it sucks, but you're not ever going to remove that injury from sports. It happens often. It sucks, but it is what it is. I think that there's a lot of hate on turf and stuff, but it can happen anywhere to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is a bummer, and hoping that he's able to, go through that rehab process and you be back to his standard form next year. So that is the recap for this past week. Lots of exciting stuff going on in the league. And now, no, we already took a look at the bathroom meter. We are actually, before getting into predicting next week games, we do want to do a little bit of playoff math for the Lions. And look, there's a lot of variables and contingencies and things like that, but this is basically what I've broken it down to. And I think, most people will kind of agree with my line of thought here. The most critical matchup for the Lions is beating the Jets next week. The Jets are the most serious threat on their schedule for these last 4 weeks here. They got to take care of business against them. However, there is a situation where they can't afford a loss any point through these next 4 games and still make the playoffs. Who you want to keep an eye on pretty much are the Commanders and the Giants here. The Commanders and the Giants play the 49ers and the Vikings, respectively, next week. I personally think it's a loss for both teams. I think the other teams are better. Week 17, the Commanders play the Browns. I think that's a win for the Commanders. And then the Giants play the Colts. I think that's a win for the Giants.
Now, it's no guarantee.
No guarantee. I'm just walking through the logic here, right? Then week 18, we got the Lions and Green Bay. That's no gimme by any means, especially at Lambeau. And then more importantly, you have the Commanders and Dallas, and then you have the Giants and the Eagles. And so problem is that the Eagles and the Cowboys may have clinched their playoff berth at this point in the season. They might not be playing their main guys, which gives the Giants and the Commanders the ability to make the playoffs, right? So if you switch these to wins for both of these teams, the Giants still could make that 7th seed if they win out, right? But if we go back and switch a loss to the Jets, right, Lions are out of the playoffs. So
yeah, the Lions cannot. They don't control their own destiny completely. They've got to win out to pretty much really make it, but they can afford one loss and have a few things bounce their way and still get in. But again, not impossible, right? The Giants and the Commanders schedule remaining is tough.
It's a lot harder than the Lions' schedule for sure. So,
Yeah.
look, the Lions winning out, I think, is absolutely possible. And I think that is the expectation the Lions kind of need to be held to if we think they're the team that can actually go and win some games in the playoffs. They should take care of the rest of their competition for the rest of the season if we legitimately think they're a playoff team. So that's kind of the situation. And I would just, if you're a Lions fan, keep an eye on the NFC East, right? I mean, it basically all boils down to those two teams. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Mark.
Yeah, the Seahawks are another team too to kind of keep somewhat of an eye on.
And their problem is, where the heck are they? Maybe a bye here, or I'm just blind. One of the two. They have a pretty tough schedule moving forward, is what I was.
Yeah, I figured they did.
Get at. Yeah.
But they definitely have another team that's you have to watch and hope that they lose because
they play Kansas City. They play, which
the Jets.
They play the Jets, which is critical, obviously, especially since the Lions are playing the Jets here.
And then the Rams.
I think last week they play the Rams, which is a game they can win. But the Seahawks essentially have to win out too, right? Like all of these teams are in a situation where it's like, okay, you can maybe afford yourself one loss and some things go your way, but if you truly want to make it into the playoffs, you have to win out. So
I saw something too where if the Lions do find a way to beat the Jets this week, their playoff odds jump to 50%. I think right now they're at 20. It's obviously game. A huge week. I mean, it's a home game. The Jets are a legitimate team. The Jets need to win just as bad as the Lions do, by the way. So it's big time playoff implication game, which who would have thought, right? Who would have thought you'd be saying that right now in December? But
it's pretty awesome. Yep. All right. So we'll move on to our predictions here. 49ers, Seahawks. Like I said, Seahawks got a pretty tough schedule moving forward here, and I think the 49ers take care of business. I mean, they seem to have not missed a beat with losing Jimmy G. Their defense, this is just the time of year they play the best football that they play. So 49ers.
I'm actually going to pick Seattle. It's in Seattle. They're in must-win, situation as well. They've had a couple tough weeks in a row, barely beating the Rams, and then obviously losing this week. So I think that this is an in-division game. Brock Purdy, I know he's 2-0, but it's going to be tough to go 3-0 in Seattle. It's a tough environment to play in. I just think Geno gets it done.
Cool. Colts at Vikings. I'm going to go Vikings here. Colts have not been able to put it together at any point this season, really. Showed some hope with the coaching changeover, but I don't think this team has the tools that they need in order to beat a very good Vikings team.
Yeah, one thing worth noting too that we haven't talked about in a little while is this game is the 1:00 game. Last week was the 1:00 game. The Lions were able to beat Kirk, even though he did perform really, really well. The Lions were able to beat Kirk at 1:00, which is huge. But I don't think he's going to lose back-to-back games at noon, Minnesota time. So I'm picking the Vikings.
Moving on to Ravens Browns. Look, the Ravens have been struggling. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but I think the Browns lose here at home to the Ravens. And it's crazy. I mean, I don't think this Ravens team should be a 10-win team, honestly. But at the same time, man, like even their 4 losses, it was like down to the wire and they found ways to lose it. So maybe we're not giving this team enough credit, and maybe they do have potential to win playoff games. But yeah, I mean, I'll still take Ravens here regardless. I still think they're good enough of a team to beat this Browns team.
I'm going to take the Browns. I think this is the week that maybe Deshaun starts to figure it out a little bit against the Ravens team that is going to be playing probably their second or third string quarterback again. The Browns can stop the run pretty well, and the Ravens want to run the ball the whole game. And if they can get in passing situations and let Myles Garrett get after this young quarterback, whoever it's going to be, it's kind of a nightmare for them. So I think the matchup just suits the Browns better. It's a home game, and I'm going to take the Browns.
Sure. This is going to be an awesome matchup, right? So for those that don't remember, the Dolphins do have a win over the Bills, and the Dolphins are a damn good team, man. They've been playing good football all year. Man, this is tough. I think the weather is going to be a factor, and I think the Bills have a really bad taste in their mouth from their first matchup here because Josh Allen passed like 60 times and had like 350 yards of offense, and they only put up like 20 points or something like that. I don't think those same statistics are going to carry over to this game, and they'll only put up 20 points. So I'm going to go Bills here. It's a tough spell for the Dolphins to, lose 3 matchups in a row being as good as you are, but they'll make the playoffs. They'll be all right. I think this is the Bills game to win.
I think the Bills are going to blow them out. I don't even think this is going to be close. I think this is, like you said, a revenge game at home, divisional, right? Playoff implications, got to keep the 1 seed if you're Buffalo. Like, they have absolutely everything to play for. And, like you said, Tua, cold weather, Tyreek Hill, cold weather. And I'm pretty sure Tyreek Hill's banged up too. I don't even know if he's going to play. This is a bad matchup for Miami. This is not one of those games they had on their calendar and were like, hey, this is a good week for us. Like, that's going to be a very, very bad matchup. And the Bills, I think, are going to blow them out.
Definitely feeling a little nervous, I'm sure. Falcons at Saints. Look, Saints took care of business against the Falcons earlier this season. They have been struggling. Trust me, I know. I have had my heart ripped out by this team a lot of times this season. But I'm going to go Saints here just because it's the Falcons, and I think we take care of business against the Falcons because that's what
the Saints aren't dead yet, right? Or
statistically, no.
Because the Bucs keep losing, right? And they keep winning.
Tampa would have to lose 3 of their next 4, and Saints would have to win 3 of their next 4, and they could make the playoffs as a 7-win team.
Yeah, which I don't think is crazy because the Bucs kind of stink.
The Bucs kind of stink, but yeah, it's a weird situation.
What's the Bucs next 3 games? Can we go back to that calculator? Does he have the calculator?
I can. So they got the Bengals, which we'll get to for this week. And then they got the Cardinals, which they can probably win that one. They got the Panthers, who smoked them the first time they played. And then they got the Falcons to end the season.
Oh man! So they have an easy schedule though.
Well, yeah, because they're playing in division, and this division is trash. It's absolute trash. Yeah. Saints included are a bad team. They're not out of it, and it hurts to say how bad they are this year. But man, Dennis Allen really messed shit up. Period. And I saw a tweet today, and I completely agree. Peyton and Breeze and Loomis set this team up to kind of hand the baton to Jameis Winston. And there's just no trust with that dude. And it's all Andy Dalton for whatever reason. I don't understand why. I think
is Winston healthy enough to play?
He is. He's been healthy for the past 4 or 5 weeks. He's been good to go. And they just keep playing Dalton. And I don't understand why. It's driving me nuts. And I just think Allen, he's a great defensive mind. He's been the D coordinator for years for the Saints. And that defense has been dominant for years. But he just does not have the head coaching moxie. It's just not there for him. So
it's not. Listen, it's lot. Just because you're a good coordinator does not always make you a good head coach. I mean, we've found that out so many times, and sometimes that's the case. This might be one of those situations.
So rough, but I'm still taking Saints here. Sorry, I don't know if you even made a pick yet. My bad.
I haven't either. I'm going to take the Saints as well. It's so funny. We bash a team for like 3 minutes straight and then go, and I'm going to pick them. But yeah, the Falcons, Mariota's out, I think.
Yep.
So we're going to see Desmond Ritter. Yep. And we're going to see what he's made of. He's had a little bit of time, right, to prepare. This is his first career start. So give the young guy a chance. You drafted him, see what he can do. And
I heard Mariota's not even showing up to practices too, which is crazy.
It's not good.
It's rough.
I think he's hurt though, but I mean, still.
Yeah, show up to practice. I mean, I get it sucks to lose your job, but still. Steelers, Panthers.
Garbage bowl.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I'm gonna take Panthers.
So am I.
I think Panthers at home, they get it done against this not very good Steelers team. Eagles, Bears. I honestly think the Eagles blow them out. like I'm talking 50 points. I don't think the Bears defense has a clue how to handle this team. And yes, I agree the Eagles offense does have weaknesses, but I don't see any way that the Bears get this done. I'll be ready to eat my words next week if the Bears somehow pull it off. But
I'm actually going to pick the Bears, John.
why?
Because
Explain it to me. Explain.
I'll explain it to you. I have read. I'm not just crazy.
No, I know. Well, you are, but Denver.
Justin Fields' ability to extend plays, right? He's healthier and healthier every week since that injury. I think he's feeling pretty good right now. His ability to extend plays and I think they'll keep them alive offensively against this Eagles defense that's missing some pieces due to injury. And then on the other side, I think that, like I said, there's going to be some team that starts to kind of, as this offense goes further and further into the season, teams have more and more film on them. And I think that this is where you start to see the Eagles maybe hit a little bit of a kind of a standstill in terms of what they're able to do running the ball. And then you're asking Jalen Hurts in probably bad weather to try to get you out of the game, right? So I don't know. I have a feeling that the Bears are going to be able to do some of that, and then Justin Fields is going to keep them alive. And then if you're alive in a game, you have a chance. And this is a home game for Chicago, so I don't know. I just have a feeling that they're going to be able to match up a little bit better than most people give them credit for.
Interesting stuff, Mark. I guess we'll tune back in on this one since we have opposite opinions on it next week. Chiefs, Texans. I mean, sorry, Texans. You guys put up a real good fight against Dallas, but I think Chiefs are going to get it done.
Yeah, Chiefs are going to win this one. Mahomes is, I think, going to come out and play one of his best games. I think he threw a few bad interceptions last week, and they came out with the win, and he still put up pretty good numbers. But those picks for a quarterback that is as confident and as great as him really bother him throughout the week. And I think he wants to come out and just, he's competing for the MVP, no doubt about it. He wants it. Jalen Hurts is in the front run. He's front running for that right now. But I think Mahomes is going to make a late push for that.
Cowboys, Jags. Man, I would love to see the Jags win this game. I really would.
It's not possible.
It's not possible?
Not impossible.
Not impossible. I'm still going to go Cowboys, though. I think they'll win it. But, man, I like the way the Jags have been playing the past few weeks. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's a tough one, dude. I'm going to go Dallas, too, but it's tough. I'm going to go Dallas, too. But one thing worth noting is that they signed T.Y. Hilton instead of OBJ, which is hilarious.
Right. We haven't talked about that. And from what I can tell, it's just risk factor, right? They need kind of like a number 3 to just get in there and do their job. And OBJ has really a lot of question marks around his knee still. And even OBJ has been saying, oh, I just want to play in the playoffs, which the translation of that is I'm not healthy right now, or at least not healthy enough. So
he was struggling to pass physicals, I heard too.
Yeah,
that teams were putting him through. So listen, T.Y. Hilton, people forget, like a few years back, he led the league in receiving yards. So
he's a stud. He's old, but that doesn't matter. I mean, for a receiver, you can be old and
right?
get the job done.
This guy is still very good. I think he's very capable. I think this is a sneaky good roster move by Dallas that's going to really put them in, even more of the conversation of coming out of the NFC. I mean, they already are.
If he's your third receiver, right? Like that's crazy. So I'm interested to see how that works out for him. Lions, Jets. I think I'm going Lions here. Kind of a must-win game, right? Yes, you can still make the playoffs if you lose this game, but man, it would be a whole lot easier if you just win this one. So I'm going Lions.
I'm picking the Lions.
Drink that Kool-Aid.
I'm holding up my empty Kool-Aid.
Yep.
I'm picking the Lions. First time all year. Knowing me, they're going to lose because of it, but hey, I'm picking them.
I think you picked them last week, actually, to beat the Vikings too. You finally folded on it.
Did I?
I think I convinced you because you like sat there and hesitated for a while. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, then I reversed back because I was scared I was going to jinx them. Or something.
I don't even remember, but I think you did give him a look last week.
Maybe.
Regardless, let's hope they win that one. Cardinals, Broncos. I think the Broncos are going to win this one. I think the Broncos are going to win this one. Cardinals, Broncos. Regardless, let's hope they win that one. Regardless, let's hope they win that one. Cardinals, Broncos. Yeah, let's hope they win that one. Cardinals, Broncos. Man, well, Russ isn't even in. I was going to say maybe I can't make fun of Russ for not being able to score points because he can do that.
What a
but he's
garbage
hurt too.
game this becomes.
So I was
right?
about to say this is just going to become like the shittiest, the slowest defensive game ever. Which I know I say this about like every Denver matchup. But like seriously, this one it's gonna be pretty brutal. Shit, I'm gonna go Broncos. I'm gonna go Denver for I think like the first time this entire season.
I'm going to go Denver too. I just think that they're going to defensively be much better than the Cardinals. And, nothing against Colt McCoy or this Cardinals team, but that offense against a very good defense is going to, they've struggled against New England, who has a good defense. Denver's got an even better defense. This is a away game for the Cardinals. And who knows? Maybe the Broncos will be better without Russell Wilson.
Maybe it's possible. Pats Raiders. I'm gonna say Pats here.
Revenge game, John.
For who? Oh, McDaniel. Yeah.
McDaniel. So
I'm still gonna go Pats.
I'm gonna go Raiders. I think that this is one of those weird times where, the master versus his apprentice. I think the apprentice gets the best. I think the Raiders are more complete on offense and actually have an identity. And I think that the one thing that scares me is Bill Belichick's going to have this offense figured out. You know what I mean? He's going to have a very good defensive game plan for them. But with that being said, the Patriots offense sucks. And I think McDaniels is going to have a pretty good idea of what Patricia's going to try to do.
Yeah, I think the Patriots have something to play for and the Raiders no longer do. So that's kind of why I'm leaning the way that I'm leaning with that.
It's tough. I love these matchups. I love when former coaches coach against each other.
It's fun. It is fun because it is a giant mind game.
I'm gonna stick with the Raiders
for sure. Titans Chargers. I'm gonna go Chargers. I think the Titans have shown a lot of weakness the past couple of weeks, and the Chargers are. Both these teams are in must-win positions, but I think the Chargers want it more.
This game scares me. I want the Chargers to win really badly. This is a very winnable game for the Chargers. They're the better team. But the Chargers struggle to stop the run, and the Titans run the ball very well. This scares me, but I'm going to pick the Chargers. You just got to stop Derrick Henry a few times.
Is Bosa back yet?
No.
Yeah. You got Khalil Mack, but still.
And Derwin James he's questionable. And he's
sure.
I don't know, dude. It's a tough game. It's a bad matchup for the Chargers with the guys that they're missing. It's a really bad matchup, but their offense is so much better than Tennessee's, and it's a home game. Not that really matters for LA because they have no fans anyway.
Right.
But
such a weird dynamic. You have all these California teams. The only one with a real fan base is the 49ers, basically. Yeah. Even when the Raiders were playing in Cali, it was like, because didn't they move cities like 3 times? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways, Bengals Bucks. I think Bengals chew in like easy.
This is a mirror game. This is Joe Burrow is the younger version of Tom Brady. He's going to be watching his younger self. I think it's going to be the Bengals though. They're missing a couple guys, but I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals. This is what they do, man. Rattle off wins end of the year.
Yeah, wasn't this team 1-4 to start the season too?
The Bucs are posers, dude. The Bucs are posers. They're going to get in, and they're going to have a home game in the playoffs, which is absolutely a sin. But yeah, they're going to get in.
It's frustrating, but is what it is. Giants at Commanders. We want either of these teams to lose in this. It really doesn't affect the Lions' hopes. I think just based off of the schedule difficulty, I want to see the Giants beat the Commanders here because the Commanders have a harder schedule moving forward, right? If one of these teams decidedly just starts sucking the rest of the season, then, it helps the Lions a lot. So I'm going to go Giants.
Question.
Yes.
Does it hurt or help us if they tie again?
I think it helps us, right? I think it helps them. Yeah, I think it helps them, assuming the Lions are getting any ties. Yeah, because that's wins that neither team's getting. So,
yeah, so I'm rooting for a tie again. I mean, they just did. So
Are you
who
gonna
knows?
write that down as your prediction? Is that they tie again?
Yeah, I am actually. They're gonna tie again. I'm putting tie. And if I call this right, by the way, I mean,
I will go nuts. Honestly,
yeah.
like that's.
I'm gonna put down the tie again. I mean, shit, it just happened last week. So, and that's what we want.
Could you
to
imagine
happen.
this team plays each other twice in a row? I mean,
Ties.
the Giants obviously played one in between, but the Commanders are playing this team twice in a row, and they tied them both times. Oh my gosh, that'd be hilarious. And
Again,
then,
so dumb though, scheduling wise, John. Like, why the hell is the same team playing each
stupid.
other like twice in 2 weeks? Makes
So
no
stupid.
sense.
And then Rams at Packers. Packers coming off a bye week. They're playing a lot better the past couple of games. But Rams, they got Baker back. So I'm gonna go Packers just because it's a home game, and the Rams.
Yeah, the Rams still stink. Don't get confused. The Rams still stink. They had a good drive. Baker had a good moment, and I'm happy to see it, honestly. But they still stink. Packers coming off of a bye week, in Lambeau, in the cold. I'm gonna pick the Packers.
Sounds good, and that is your predictions for next week. This episode was just a lot of good football talk, honestly. We haven't had guests on the past couple of weeks, but honestly, like, this is the time of the season where Mark and I were just so excited to have this episode just that we could talk about all the ways that the season is shaking out, all these playoff implications. I really enjoyed this one just because we basically talked X and O's the entire time, and it's really fun to think about, the potential that some of these teams trying to claw their ways into the playoffs have. So excited to see the way the season finishes out, man.
John, there's, I guess we can have this talk when it actually happens, but a lot of talk about having another side bet here on the ACT score. And we appreciate what people, I mean, I don't know, I saw an over under.
Okay, 20. What was your score when you took it as a junior? Because I know it was high. You're a smart kid.
I got a 29.
A 29. Okay. Your math chops are just absolutely not where they were at when you were a junior. 100%. Your reading and writing skills probably translated just fine, and science is just reading graphs. So I think I'm going to set the line at 24. How do you feel about that?
That's pretty fair. I think it's pretty fair. I'm going to feel like such a freak. I'm going to feel like Buddy the Elf in next to all the other elves, just taking that.
It's weird. I feel like when you're growing up and you're 17 or 18 years old and you look at people in their 20s, you're like, oh, I kind of look the same as those people. But now being in your mid 20s and looking at high schoolers, I'm like, you are literal children in comparison to me.
I'm pretty sure my 18-year-old sister is going to have to retake it too. She's trying to apply to colleges and trying to get a better score. So I might be sitting next to my sister.
So you guys should book it together just to save yourself a little bit of embarrassment. I feel like that would kind of help that you have somebody to kind of walk in with.
I'm just going to tell everyone hey, this is my sister. I'm here for moral support. I'm
going to take it with her for moral support.
I'm going to take it with her. That's just going to suck so bad. We're going to have you might have to take it and then not take it and just film it somehow. Hidden hat.
Yeah. Well, either
Hidden
that
camera.
or we can set. I'm sure one of your brothers would be more than happy to follow you into the building, and then greet you when you're done with the test. I think they'd be more than happy to do that. I'm sure they would love the opportunity. Actually, so
it's all still a maybe though because they don't have more than 6 wins yet.
The Lions are getting another win.
I think so, yeah. But I hope so. I literally am going to hate my life if they win another game and don't make the playoffs.
then don't make the playoffs, right?
You got to make the playoffs.
At least there's some icing on the cake if they make the playoffs for sure.
You got to make the playoffs. But there's all kinds of fun stuff in this episode. I hope people enjoyed it. We'll get the ticker on sooner next time. Not going to let John off the hook for that one. I'll be better in my opinions moving forward. And I got 3 more of these in my garage. I'm going to go grab and probably get drunk off of tonight. So
yeah. Well, hey, you got to have I think 1 per Lions win, and also I have this picture of Dan Campbell that I am just running through this little deep fry app for every additional win they get, and hopefully it will just be complete static by the end of the season. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Looking forward to catching up on what happened next week. Peace.
Peace.
Thing's still spinning. I don't know if this episode's actually over, but